next person who's going to log in is Mark Brown because it's his typical day. So he's logging in, and as you can see, a very familiar site. We're starting to show our components coming up. We've got inbox, we've got task due today. He can go in there right now and go to his, what do I have to work on today? Oh, well, here's a service request that came in, and it possibly needs to be worked on, that fired off yesterday. Maybe he just wants to go back in and look at his main desk and see what's going on, so we can show overdue, past due, and things like this. Again, this is all configurable based on, things. Well, here we can see that here's the service request that we fired off today based on this number 12902. From here, he can click on it, he can open it, he can mark it as read if it happens to just be a message, he can move to close once he's completed with it, he can fetch it, as we talked about the queue, he can fetch it, he can open and fetch it, which means he's actually getting it and going to take work on it. He can add a reminder, say, oh, maybe I want to come back in and send myself an email, perhaps I want to do the inbox, or just a silent reminder to tell me that I've got to work on this in 15 minutes or so. So there's many options in order to handle this task. Well, Mark is just going to go in and actually start looking at it, so he's going to open up the task. Okay, now the task is open. You can see we've got all this information that's moved forward. This is all read-only because we have the capability of taking forms forward and portions of the forms and make them read-only and move it so you have reusability throughout the process. Again, you can see down here, here's our three things. In order for him to work on it, as you can see, he can't do anything. There's no activity. He has to fetch the task. So Mark fetches the task, and he sits there and he decides. Over here you can see that the other two people have now been taken out of this because Mark has now taken ownership and plans on working on it. And the other two people have been taken out and the message has been taken out of their inbox. Well, Mark decides he's actually got to go back to lunch, and he's not going to have time to work on this right now, so he's going to return the task because he might not have been able to complete it. As you see, as soon as we return the task, it's put back into the queue, and Helen and Peter show up. So even though Mark didn't work on it, Helen or Peter could pick it up if they have a light workload and start working on it. Well, Mark comes back after lunch and decides he's going to fetch the task. And he's going to sit there and he's going to actually start doing some work. Well, he's looking at this and he says, well, the customer needs a new laptop. So he's like, well, what kind of laptop is it? This is where our social BPM comes in, and he can actually sit there and ask a question. So he's going to come up here and click on Ask a Question, and he's going to ask a question. So he's going to want to go back to Jane, since she's the one that originally. So you can see we have the list of your people that are actually in your Active Directory or organization. We can pick the user. So he's going to call back to Jane Rose and send a message to her and say, what type of laptop? Now, the social BPM gives us a way to actually incorporate all this information into the process. And so what does this mean to you? This allows this content to be bound to this specific process at the time it's happening. So instead of picking up a phone and talking to somebody where that information might be lost and you would never know that somebody's always asking about this type of thing, it's now with the process. So as we go through the process and we develop and we design and we implement our process, maybe 3 to 6 months down the line we're going to go back and we want to review. We'll be able to see these comments on this process, and maybe this question was asked 9 or 10 times throughout the process. Maybe to improve the process and get better ROI on it, we're going to put a field in now that has a drop down of the available laptop types that we have to avoid this in the future. So this is, again, very important. It's tied to the process. We can send this out to public or private. If we want to go just back to Jane, we go private. If we go to public, it's opening up to everybody who has access to the people, as you saw, Peter or Helen. Maybe somebody already knew it. So now you're bringing in a social group that has the collaborative expertise to be able to maybe answer this question. Again, saving you time, not having to send out an email, getting on the phone, or things like that. So we're going to just send it right back to Jane, and she'll be sent an email, and the thing will be put in her box saying, hey, I've just asked a question. So as we move along, we remember that Mark checked in and checked out thing. Comments are also similar to questions. You could just put a comment on it saying, maybe we should improve this, or this didn't work very well, or anything else. So when we re-review the process, we can actually do things about that. We're going to come over here and look at the process wall. Again, we talked about auditing earlier and how powerful that is, or how it is required by law to be able to provide who touched what when. You can see that every process and every step or every action that's been taken against this process is documented. Here's Jane touched and created it. Here's where Mark fetched it. So we have the date, time stamp of all this information, and allowing you to be able to audit and follow everything that's going on. So we're done with looking at that. Mark's going to go down now here and actually be able to add into this stuff. And just a note on the social BPM, you can remember that this whole socialized tool is going to improve collaboration between the process participants. It's going to reduce errors through notification and the comments that are in there, so somebody can look at it and say, oh, you know, this happened before, let's not do this again. Makes the operation more interactive, modern, and team-oriented endeavor. So you're bringing in everybody so you get this collaborative approach towards the process, and you can make the process better and better. Well, Mark's going to go and add a couple of things because there's some steps that have to be done. So he's going to order the laptop. So you can see we're adding all these things. We have a drop down here now. This is actually looking at different structures within your organization and your Active Directory that we allow you to set up. So we're going to pick a team. So this is going to associate this team now, could be multiple levels of people in this team. And the advantage of this is that we're dynamically bringing in this team from your Active Directory, and we allow the workflow to flow based on this group instead of individuals. So just by having that saves you time that you can govern who has access to this particular group, and by moving people in and out, you don't have to worry about changing the process later on down the line. If somebody leaves the team, you just add another person in, or as the team grows and more people get there. So the ROI on this is the process keeps moving forward based on the people that are in this group and not as an individual. So that helps out a lot. So we're going to order this. We're going to sit there and we're going to insert this. We're going to add another action here. So you can see another powerful grid feature here that we're doing. We're going to say install software. So we're going to pick the same team. We're going to pick an offshore team. So you can see we can distribute it, install Office 365. We're going to insert, and then finally we're going to add one more action because we're going to sit there and we're actually going to deliver, ship. So we're going to pick the northern team again because they got it back, and we're going to say ship FedEx. So now we have our three tasks that we need to be able to accomplish this. As you remember, you can edit, delete all this stuff. Again, he can go down here and look at information and maybe put a comment, oh, well, they ordered this before, do they want that, or things like that. So now we're going to sit here and we're going to submit this. And you can see it was submitted successfully, and now you can sit here and again we're looking at this hierarchical grid, and now we can see, as you remember, I sat there and said that this was going to require an approval because there's a dollar amount because we're ordering a new laptop.